This 27 to 30 billion dollar that I've talked about per year that is demanded to finance growth of our transmission and distribution networks and clean power generation, that 30 billion dollar is not in the cash in the central banks of governments. Let me start with the governments. Governments don't have their act together. In many countries, India included, Philippines included, Myanmar included, they don't have their act together in putting regulations in terms of defining the technology, the configurations, the way to evaluate technology, and the way to engage private sector. This 27 to 30 billion dollar that I've talked about per year that is demanded to finance growth of our transmission and distribution networks and clean power generation, that 30 billion dollar is not in the cash in the central banks of governments. They have too many needs. They've spent waste money on subsidization of fossil fuels, diesel, coal. That's where their attention is. That's where the political economy is right now with their attention. Where we need to go is to address the lack of rules, lack of proper regulations to engage private sector, lack of rules and regulations and policies to use the right methodologies to evaluate investments and private sector engagements in microgrid. That's all over the place. The other thing at the level is the banks, financing institutions. Financing institutions do have a lot of experience in financing mortgages and financing car loans and financing equipment loans to industries. But when it comes to financing microgrids, they absolutely run nuts because they don't have their act together. Their traditional evaluation methodologies for risk assessments are not in place. So they deny, they neglect. There are a few exceptions out there. The World Bank finally, after 7-8 years, caught up on financing governments on microgrid and electrification. There are a few other banks out there, like the Development Bank of the Philippines, are doing some of these things. There are banks waking up to work with companies like ours to understand the risk and to go into this path, because it is an investment that contributes to the sustainable development goals. So that's the second problem we see and encounter all over the world, actually. The third and the last has to do with the manufacturing industry. We see that the manufacturing industry, name it, Siemens, ABB, all these guys, Schneider, everyone is developing, and yeah, I call name because I challenge the CEOs of these companies to enter into a dialogue with us to understand that microgrids, hundreds of thousands of microgrids needs to be developed at different scales. And none of these companies are able to build equipment that can help companies like us to do proper cost-effective system integration for small-scale electrification projects. You want to buy smart meters that are connected to the cloud and give you the data of how a consumer is using electricity. You can't buy 1,000 pieces for a village because the minimum quantity these big companies only offer is 10,000. So their entire production supply chain is geared towards cities and the existing big national grids and centralized national big corporations or operators of power grids. It is not yet designed for that. I mean, why would I buy a power management system that cost me $1 million if the total investment for a village would require only $500,000, including the power grid? It doesn't make sense.